Hey guys, if there's a mistake you can make with a camera, then I've probably made it. Over the many years I've been involved in photography, I have committed all sorts of sacrilege acts against my poor unsuspecting camera equipment. You know those do and don't sections at the back of manuals? I must admit that I've done most of the don'ts at one time or another, and let me tell you, it has cost me. And so in the name of all the kit that I've bollocksed up over the years, I'd like to share my experiences with you guys in the hope that you're saved the same cost and emotional trauma. This is my 10 digital camera anti-commandments.
Thou shalt not leave the camera on the tripod and walk around with it.
I don't think there's a well-known photographer on YouTube that I haven't seen doing this at one time or another. No names, no pack drill, Thomas Heaton. And it makes my butt clench up tighter than a nun's chuff every single time I see it. It's something I used to do myself until the day I was walking across the car park at the beach. My Canon 550D and 50mm prime lens fell off the tripod and onto the ground. Destroyed the lens and I shattered the screen on the back of the camera. I don't care what kind of tripod mount you're using or how secure you think it is, there will be a day when you don't tighten it up or something fails on the tripod mount and it will cost you big. And unlike the aforementioned big name YouTube photographers, you just can't call up a camera company and whistle up a replacement for the promise of a quick sponsored video. So please don't sling your tripod and camera over your shoulder like one of the 7 dwarfs going off to work for the day with their spades on their shoulder. It takes 2 seconds to remove a camera and reattach it to a tripod, and considerably longer to get over the humiliation of shagging either because you got lazy.
Thou shalt not cross-thread thine lens filter.
There are actually a few ways to get a lens filter stuck on a lens, but in my experience the most common way is to simply cross-thread it. You're in a hurry, there's some awesome scene unfolding in front of your jaded photographic eyes, and in your haste you manage to jam that filter on your expensive lens. The easiest way to avoid this, of course, is to use a bracketed or magnetic filter system, but if you do have the screw-in type filter, just take your time, rotate the filter back and forth 90 degrees to ensure you found the start of the thread, and stop immediately if you feel any resistance when screwing it on. I once had to remove a circular polarizer from my old Canon 10-22mm lens with a pair of tin snips, so take it from me, you want to take your time.
Thou shalt not breathe on thine lens and wipeth it clean with thine sleeve.
There are several reasons why this is a bad idea. Firstly, your breath, even if you don't have halitosis, can be harmful to the highly specialised coatings used on modern lenses. Nikon themselves recently advised against breathing on a lens for this precise reason. Secondly, if you follow up that breath with a dab of your sleeve, you stand a really good chance of scratching the lens due to some unseen particle lurking on your clothing. Get into the habit of carrying around a clean microfiber cloth with you and use that instead.
Thou shalt assume nothing.
Assumption has been the ruin of many a fine photographic opportunity. You assume that the battery in your camera is fully charged. You assume that there's an SD card inside your camera. You assume that you packed your tripod along with your camera bag before you set off in your car. Assume nothing, my friends. I can't tell you how many times I've driven to some lovely location only to discover that I've left my entire bloody camera backpack at home. and then I have to pretend that I was intended to use my iPhone all along. So I've got into the habit of doing a pre-shoot checklist for batteries, SD cards, camera, tripods, filters. And I always stash a few SD cards around the place as well, because there will almost certainly come a day when I'm glad I did.
Thou shalt not waft thine camera back and forth in the air without a lens.
This is another transgression I see the photography YouTubers doing all the time. They take the lens off the camera and they waft the camera body around in the air as if it was a cheese that needed some time to breathe a little. Anytime you expose your camera's sensor to the air, there's a chance that some foreign object will get into the camera body and perhaps straight onto the sensor. Best case, you get a few dust spots on your image. Worst case, you ruin your sensor and face a costly repair. And this goes double if you own a mirrorless camera like this one, because there's no protective flip-up mirror in here to protect the sensor from air bogeys. And in case you're wondering, this is my knackered Fujifilm X-T4, which I dropped into a saltwater river face first without a lens on the front about a year ago.
Thou shalt not trust thine valued photographs to the SD card.
If you're not a regular photographer, then there's probably the temptation to leave your photos on the SD card in the camera in between shoots. This, my friends, is a recipe for disaster, because SD cards are poxy little fragile pieces of flimsy plastic and silicone which fail on an alarmingly regular basis. When you get back from a shoot, transfer your photos to a hard drive, whether you plan on processing them then and there or not. Oh, and have a backup of your hard drive too, because those things have a habit of popping their clogs when you least expect it to.
Thou shalt calibrate thine viewfinder when shooting in manual focus.
Now that we've all got pretty decent screens on the back of our cameras, many of us use them to compose shots rather than the viewfinder. I don't think that's necessarily a great idea, but it's convenient and I understand why people do it. However, if you do use the viewfinder and you are shooting with manual focus because you're a sensible landscape photographer who wants to ensure your image is as sharp as possible, then remember to calibrate your viewfinder, or it will look like it was shot through one of those coin-operated seaside binoculars.
Thou shalt never turn thine back on thine tripod.
Surf lifesavers always say you should never turn your back on the ocean, and I reckon there's a similar line of advice for photographers and tripods. Obviously this goes double if you've set up your tripod somewhere with uneven ground, but it honestly applies in pretty much every situation. Wind, sinking sand, waves, people, branches, foliage and wildlife are just a few of the things that can knock your tripod over. And let me tell you, from someone it's happened to, turning around to witness your camera and tripod falling to the ground on jagged rocks ages you about 10 years in a heartbeat. Don't believe me? I'm actually 22 years old.
Thou shalt not overestimate thine camera's waterproof rating.
All companies like to play fast and loose with marketing materials, and one area in which they love to expand the realms of what might be considered the truth is waterproof ratings. Admittedly, camera companies are not the worst for this. That would probably be smartphone manufacturers, but you still need to understand the limitations of your kit. Water resistance does not mean you can stand out in drenching rain and expect your camera's guts to remain moisture free. Also, a camera with a good waterproof rating is pointless if the lens you've stuck on the front of it has all the structural integrity of a colander. So before committing yourself to standing out in a storm in the pissing rain, check what your kit is actually capable of.
Thou shalt not blow on thine sensor.
Dust spots are annoying, that much is certain, but if you discover your photographs have measles, please resist the urge to whip off the lens and blow on the sensor. Instead of dislodging whatever is on there, you're highly likely to splatter this delicate part of your camera with an exotic array of mouth-propelled spit goblins, tooth plaque, morsels of food, and whatever else you've had in your mouth recently. No judgment. Instead, buy yourself one of these little pumps. Hold the camera body facing down, pump some fresh air towards the sensor, and avoid having to do a tense self-clean of this sensor or pay for a costly professional service. Alright guys, those are my 10 anti-commandments of camera equipment. Are there any you think should be added to the list? Did any of my list strike a chord with you? If not, please learn from my repeated sins against the holy church of photography. I suspect most of us are actually repeat offenders of a few of these. As Douglas Adams said, we live and learn, or at least we live. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the old like button just down there, and if you'd like to see more of my dazzling insights into the joys of modern photography, jab your pudgy index finger onto the mouse button while it's over the top of that big red subscribe button just down here. Till the next time guys, ta-ta.